Hi, my name is Clinton Erling, and I'm the president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The Chamber's Business Review is an informative weekly television magazine of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We will showcase the activities of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, feature interviews of prominent business personalities, and broadcast our popular training seminars for the entire country's benefit. So please sit back and enjoy while we indulge your attention over the next half an hour.
It is with great joy that I bid you welcome to this occasion. One that was planned, organized, supported by a wide cross-section of people or organizations. Like I would have mentioned at the head table, to ensure that you'll garner the information that is necessary for good fire prevention techniques, first in your homes, and then that will transfer itself to the working environment from which you represent today. I realize we are running behind time, so I wouldn't want to say much more, but I would like to move straight into the program proper. And as such, I'd love to call on Mr. Raj Singh, Chairman of the Fire Advisory Board, to give his opening remarks. Sir.
On behalf of the Fire Advisory Board, I bid you a very warm welcome. And I would like to extend our sincerest appreciation to you all here for being all here today to this our 4th annual fire prevention seminar. This tripartite relationship between the Fire Advisory Board, the Guyana Fire Service, and the Georgetown Chamber continues to grow stronger and stronger. And today's seminar is ample evidence of the success of this partnership. And today I would also like to include Hand in Hand as our 4th partner, since they've been with us all 4 years to this relationship. So I would like to thank Hand in Hand for continuing the sponsorship this year. We've moved to a different venue because of the participants that we anticipate to be here. And looking out here, I see it numbers close to almost, I would say, at more than 75 persons. We'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for doing most of the administrative work, getting the ads out there, soliciting their chamber members, and making sure that the business, because the target of our seminar is to get more persons from the business community, the security sector, architects, engineers, persons of that ilk to come here for the fire service to share ideas and for them to learn a little bit more about fire safety and fire prevention issues and take back to their workplaces and so on. We'd also like to thank Dokal Ainlim, who has kindly donated the extinguishers once again. They've been a part of our partnership too over the years. I think they donated 10. That will be used as part of the practical demonstration on the tarmac a little later on in the program today. I am pleased to note that the Guyana Fire Service has now expanded the program to include a few other issues, I think like evacuation procedures, and a few other items are also listed there. Fire protection of storage and assembly buildings, those are very topical issues now because we have more and more large buildings being constructed around the country, especially in Georgetown. So we need to cater for evacuation procedures very carefully. I feel confident that at the end of today's seminar, with the content and delivery of this program would be of the usual high standard, and trust that all participants would leave here better educated in the rudimentary elements of fire safety and fire prevention issues. Indeed, this seminar has continued to grow at a very fast pace ever since we started in November 2010. That year we had attracted just about 25 persons. Now we are looking at close to 100 persons today. That represents over 100% growth every year. We have now outgrown our previous venue, as I mentioned, and I hope that we could have our seminar every year at this particular venue since it caters for expansion. Fire prevention is a very preemptive, a logical, and proactive issue, and its results are very difficult to measure, since it's well nigh impossible to measure the cost that is saved when an accident is prevented by good housekeeping measures. and such other simple fire prevention techniques. I would normally use this opportunity to update everyone on the role and functions of the Fire Advisory Board and the work that we've been doing over the years. This board was resuscitated in 2006, and I think the first appointment of chairman was, coincidentally, was Mr. Orlin, and I took over from him in 2009. So this is about my 5th year, so I'm just about ready to pass over the mantle to someone else. Over the 5 years of my tenure, we have achieved quite a lot. I mean, our major responsibilities is to advise the minister. It's very limited in terms of scope, according to the Fire Prevention Act. We advise the minister on fire prevention issues, and basically we serve as an appeal board as a result of inspections that are carried out by the Guyana Fire Service. If any business or any home that is inspected that has deficiencies or defects, our board is the body or the entity that is responsible to receiving appeals, listening to them, and dealing with them in a prudent manner. This is our signature event for the year, and we've continued to work very hard at our statutory obligations. A lot more work needs to be done. The Fire Advisory Board meets about 6 times per year at the Ministry of Home Affairs. And since then, we have produced 2 fire prevention reports, one in 2010, and a second one, which was an updated version of the first one, was presented in the Ministry in June 2012. Some of our recommendations have been implemented since these reports were submitted to the minister. I think they were laid over in Parliament. I'm not too sure about that one. We witnessed new fire stations being opened across the country with the expanded housing sector. I think one in Mahaika, one is being worked at in Diamond. We had recommended one to be done in Parfaith also. So little by little, I think as funds and resources are made available at the ministry, we are getting these things in place. Equipment has also been purchased for the hinterland. A forensic lab is being constructed basically for the Guyana Police Force, but I think the Fire Service will also have access to that forensic lab to conduct their forensic tests for fires whenever they happen. There are quite a few other issues that the board has lobbied. I mean, the fire hydrant system has been a very sore issue over the years, and we continue to lobby the Mayor and City Council, which is the body in charge of, the Ministry of Home Affairs has now, the minister personally told us that he has adopted, since there were several agencies, there was a lot of confusion about the fire hydrant system as to which agency, in fact, is responsible for that, whether it's the Guyana Water Authority, the Mayor and City Council, Central Housing, but the Ministry of Home Affairs has now adopted the responsibility for that, for getting the fire hydrant system looked after. I don't know when that will happen. That's something which we really need to have taken care of in the city. The other very serious issue, we made some other recommendations about the possible acquisition of a fire boat and more new fire stations, as I said, in the new housing areas, improvement in the water supply situation, continuous training for our seasoned firefighters who continue to perform excellently. There's also a dire need for the implementation of the National Building Code, which is currently, in a draft format. So we hope very soon we'll have that building code in place, which would dictate the way how new construction will be done, how renovations will be done based on the building code. Because it's a very comprehensive document. I think the Bureau of Standards is responsible for that particular document, and they work very closely with several different government and private entities, inclusive of the fire department. Another very sore issue which we've lobbied the Mayor and City Council for is the derelict buildings that scatter across mostly Georgetown. And because over 20 such buildings have been identified for several years now, and the Mayor and City Council has just been sitting on them, and we've not had any or very little work done in the demolition of these buildings. I personally met with the town clerk, Ms. Suba, a few months ago, to get some action on it. So I don't think anything, possibly the chief fire officer could throw some light on where we are at with that when he gives his feature remarks. This year, finally this year, we've scored a big milestone, if you may put it like that. We secured a budget. Over the years, we've always operated on sponsorship, like with Hand in Hand. We've gotten Hand in Hand to sponsor this seminar for 4 years, as I said. But we've gotten a budget approved in August, I think, of this year from the minister for the remainder of this year to use of close to $2 million. And we hope that he'll continue to support us in our work, because our advice, what we have done is we have expanded our operations to include education of the general public on fire safety and fire prevention issues. So all of those funds have been utilized in various advertising campaigns about fire prevention and fire safety issues. We've started a fire prevention corner in the Stabrook and the Kaichor News every day except Sundays. We have produced some TV clips which started around Fire Prevention Week in October, and those have been aired about the dangers of smoking and things like that, and those continue to be aired, right? So those are some of the things we have funded. This same seminar was also taped in January. Our third one was done in January, and we've been rebroadcasting those. You know, it's a half-hour edited version of the seminar, just to try to capture people's attention. So we've been doing that, I think, twice monthly. And we're also working with Mr. Ron Robinson to have some radio ads in relation to fire prevention activities. So those are the major activities that we've been focused on. This year, once again, we're going to tape this seminar to be copied and edit and distribute to other chambers or other bodies around the country, so that rather than having to organize a seminar in each county or in each area or in each region, we'll be able to use tapes to show to persons. You could air it either on the Learning Channel or other TVs available. So those are the type of work that we've been engaged in over the past few months, and we hope that this type of education that is being promoted by the Fire Advisory Board, more and more persons would get educated about the issue of fire prevention, and trust that they would be able, and you here also, I'd like you to, if we have 75 persons here, all of you came from 75 families. Most of you might be with different companies. We would urge you to go back to your workplaces and ensure what you've learned here today, you share it with your family and your workplace colleagues to ensure that the word is spread, all right? Another activity which we did, I just missed that one, is we are working with the schools also. We have printed fire prevention tips and some posters which we're in the process right now of sharing out to 300 schools. So we are working at various angles, print media, the electronic media, to get our word out there, all right? So with those few words, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and trust that the seminar is well received, and I thank you for your patience during the short wait this morning. Thank you very much and enjoy.
I'll now call on Mr. Matthew Kisoon, top sales representative of Hand in Hand Mutual Fire and Life Insurance Company, to remarks.
What I've discovered in time as a little boy growing up is that there were special areas in our country where you could say a fire would take place, like Georgetown and so on. But what has happened now is that we have fires all over the country. There are no special areas now. So we've had fires, big fires in Berbice and Essequibo and Lethem. And if I'm correct, and I stand corrected, at least in every week, there's a fire of recent. This is very alarming. And what is even more sad is that a lot of our children have died, and even adults, as a result of fires. Very sad for our nation. It's a loss to society, a loss to families. And I want to believe that there are a number of contributing factors, and I hope I'm not infringing on the Chief Fire Officer's remarks, that people's habits and lifestyle have contributed a lot to this. Negligence, of course, substandard buildings and where there are faulty electrical wiring and things like that. Those are just some. And that's why Hand in Hand is very strict with respect to fire underwriting requirements for insurance purposes. And I trust most of you have your insurance with Hand in Hand. We have refused large businesses because they could not comply with our standards for insurance. And nothing's wrong with that. So in spite of the competition that's out there from competitors, we have made very important choices in refusing to insure some properties simply because they cannot comply with fire safety regulations. But as a leading insurer in Guyana, we've always been stable, solid, and viable in our operations, very reliable. And we will continue to do so. The modernization of the Guyana Fire Service, I believe, is one of the keys to preservation of lives and property in our nation. Of course, it costs some money. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. So if you have a great mind, money has to follow that mindset so that purpose can be realized and accomplished. And what has happened is that with modern buildings being constructed today, we have to think and operate at a higher level. So our tactics and strategy have got to change. We've got to think outside the box and modernize our approach as well with respect to fire prevention. Hence a better and more efficient fire service where we can have more modern vehicles and equipment. And I would want to think that right now in our nation we're very much way behind in this regard. There have been improvements along the way, but to cope with the housing drive and the fact that thousands of Guyanese are owning their homes very quickly now creates a scenario where there will be even more fires. And this is what we've got to work hard towards attempting to prevent such disasters. So it will call for a lot of work, a lot of the people coming together to think outside the box and really develop tactics and strategies that will really help us to cope with such issues. I want to end with a dream of mine. I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I hope that this dream does not come true in the year 2525 when none of us will be here. But my dream is that one day every insurance company will have a fire tender. Fully computerized to synchronize with the system of the Guyana Fire Service, whereby if the Guyana Fire Service receives a call with respect to a fire, the system will be of such that the networking will ensure that wherever the building is located, it can be punched into the system quickly. Think with me a little here. It's a dream. And we'll be able to act swiftly on it. For instance, if that property is insured with Hand in Hand, and we lock into the system and we realize it's lot 25, Eastern Boulevard, Western Guyana. we'll be able to act quickly and be able to assist the Guyana Fire Service in coming to their support so that again lives and property can be preserved. It sounds kind of foolish probably, but as I said earlier, a mine is a terrible thing to waste. Buildings burn easily now, very easily, but I must commend the brave efforts of our firemen and women and the general public in assisting greatly in fire prevention. I can assure you that hand in hand we'll continue to support this program as sponsor, and we hope that it will grow as the years go by and that more people will come on board. So continue to be very supportive and give of your best, and I trust that the rest of the day will be very successful. Thank you.
I'll now have to invite to this podium Mr. Clinton Orlin, President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Well, all protocols are already observed before I came up, but I just want to really congratulate the fire department, and I want to congratulate Hand in Hand and the Guyana Fire Advisory Board for ensuring that this seminar is kept alive, one, and it has reached its 4th year, and two, that it continues to edify members of the business community of the importance of fire prevention and fire safety. I just want to single out the Guyana Fire Advisory Board. You know, Raj said I'm the first chairman, but I'm not. When the board was resuscitated, it was headed by Ms. Doreen DeCaries, who was the owner of Stabrook News, and Doreen represented the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association. When Doreen stepped down, I assumed the position of chairman of the Fire Advisory Board. I know the work of the Fire Advisory Board. I know their primary responsibility is to, and they're constitutionally mandated to, is to advise the minister on issues related to fire prevention and fire safety. And the second one that most people don't know is that, which Raj spoke about, is also if the fire service comes to your business or even your home and they carry out an inspection and they make recommendations, and for any reason you're not satisfied with some of the recommendations, or you're incapable of implementing some of the recommendations, you always have a recourse, and that recourse is the Guyana Fire Advisory Board. You can make or lodge a formal complaint to the board, and the board will deliberate, and they will also pronounce on what are the final requirements for your establishment or your home for you to implement. Sometimes they might tell you, look, you have to wholesale implement the recommendations emanating from the Guyana Fire Service, or they would recommend their own course or their own menu of actions for such a complainant to comply with. Today's session and partnership is an absolute essential one, because businesses know, and we all know, that we cannot afford to lose buildings or personnel as a result of fire. And fires create a loss in productivity, and a loss in productivity translates into a loss of revenues. Fires can also have the rippling effect of affecting our entire economy as a whole, as they put people out of secure jobs, they close stores, they close our firms, and they halt the necessary tax revenues that our business would accrue and pay over to the tax authorities in Guyana. Our partnership is also necessary because it helps us in the private sector to understand the critical importance of fire safety concepts, and it helps us to create realistic and effective plans to comply with the laws of Guyana. The session also helps to raise awareness to companies that do not have their own internal, I'm sure some of the companies here have their own internal fire risk management systems. But for those companies that don't have, and even the ones that have, this seminar would equip you with the knowledge to help you to begin to implement those systems. Or for those that already have, the sessions would ensure that your own internal efforts align with the efforts and the rules and the laws of the Guyana Fire Service and of our Constitution. While our fire service has been doing a very tremendous job over the years, the organization has to continuously strive to maintain and to improve on its operations. This would no doubt require additional resources from government and opposition parliamentary policymakers. This is necessary to ensure that the physical and technical capacity of the fire service is enhanced. Things like more inspections, increased training and exposure to international programs, to new and innovative approaches to fire prevention and firefighting, upgrades to and additional fire stations in areas where communities are blossoming and expanding. And in particular, I can speak to the interior locations where bulk of our economic activity in Guyana is occurring at the moment. Not just the bulk, but the most seminal industry and sector at the moment is our mining and extractive sector. And I think more resources in terms of fire safety prevention and attention should be targeted towards that sector and industry. These are just a few areas where the Guyana Fire Service needs the tools to effectively execute its mandate. I also want to reiterate something that I said last year's seminar, Raj, and I implored the Minister of Home Affairs last year to ensure, or to consider rather, the possibility of outsourcing and privatizing some of the responsibilities of the Guyana Fire Service, especially in those same remote and interior locations. This must be done in a very structured way where we have a licensing system where private inspectors and engineers could legally certify and inspect premises, conduct investigation and surveys, develop and review fire safety plans and fire evacuation systems. This would take off some of the resource burden and the administrative burden or the capacity burden from the Guyana Fire Service, especially in those remote interior locations. I'm pretty sure that our private sector would not have such a problem to pay for such services because the consequences of fire or a fire incident is greater than paying for such an inspection or such a service. The final issue I want to touch on this morning is the one that Raj mentioned. And the Chamber of Commerce, we've had cause to just about a month or two ago to issue a statement to the effect of derelict buildings around not just Georgetown but around the country as a whole. I know over the years many of these buildings they've already been identified. So we in the private sector, the fire service, the public authorities, policymakers, they know which buildings would fall under this category. But I think we need, and for reasons unknown, there've not been much action or a coordinated attempt to rid the country of not only these eyesores, as I would describe them, but also to prevent the loss of lives that could result from the risk posed by these buildings. I want to stress that such efforts at demolishing such structures must also have a human face or a human component to them. Because oftentimes there are people who occupy those premises. And we can't just, in a bellicose or belligerent manner, demolish such structures. So any approach at addressing this issue would require that it is done in a very coordinated fashion across the various public departments and ministries to ensure that adequate social services are afforded to those who would be affected and displaced as a result. With that being said, I just want to wish all the attendees here this morning and even the ones who are administering the course from the fire service, I want to wish you a very successful session here this morning, a very productive session here this morning. And again, I implore those at the end, please stay focused on the seminar And again, I wish you a productive session. Thank you very much. Good morning.